Before they even touch a woman, 99% of guys fail. And the cause is easy. They behave like novices, like savages attempting to break through the door to a vault of treasure, not realizing that a very complicated combination lock is protecting it. They rush, they push, they make crude remarks and attempt to touch her body as soon as they can, believing that pressure and alpha males are characterized by force. However, each time they encounter a chilly wall of courteous dismissal, or worse, patronizing sympathy, they don't recognize the most crucial element. You can't smash through a woman's body. It's secure, a safe that has 7 locks, and until the key is returned, the next lock won't open, the earlier one, and we will dismantle this entire system today. I'm going to give you some tips on how to be a good person or quarter. I'll give you a set of 7 master keys instead, each one in turn crippling a portion of her mental, emotional, and internal resistance automatic. This information is risky since it functions subconsciously. Level, avoiding the logical filters. Even the greatest human explorer's soul, similar to Freud's description of the limitless sea of unconscious desires, and Jung, who observed how archetypes from the past influence our behavior, both concurred on one something. It is nearly always impossible to discover someone's genuine motivations directly. You must be aware of the side routes. The keys must be with you, and you'll get them today. However, I must caution you, only the entire sequence is effective. You run the danger of failing if you only know half the keys, destroying everything at the last minute, leading to profound uncertainty rather than attraction. Therefore, before we start, I ask you to click the video's like button. Additionally, subscribe if you're fresh here and prepared to put in the effort necessary to achieve true expertise. Right now, and tell me which city you're from in the comments section. I adore recognizing the origins of our community. Section 1. The first lock in the key to your method is the most armored and powerful. It's her critical mind, yelling at her thoughts, her social conditioning, and her bad experiences from the past in her ear. Take caution. He has a single desire. Additionally, unless you unlock this lock, any additional acts you do will be interpreted as hostile or as a pitiful attempt at manipulation. Most guys produce. This is the same deadly error. They attempt to open this lock with the simplest and most dependable key, which is a praise about her look. They remark, for example, "You have beautiful eyes, a fantastic body." What do they receive in exchange? A courteous smile at best. At worst, a gorgeous woman has heard this 1,000 times. Therefore, it's an internal rejection. She perceives it as white noise, a background hum that conveys only one piece of information. I am judging you as an item, a woman. She is not elevated by such a compliment. Conversely, it positions she belongs in the same category as everything else that is wonderful. It doesn't produce a connection, but only highlights the hunter's distance from his objective. However, the master is aware that on an entirely different dimension is the key to her thoughts. The intellectual praise, not because of her natural physical characteristics, but rather because of the outcome. It is admired, of her own self-improvement, her perspective, her thought process, and her distinct viewpoint on the world. Describe the practical meaning of an intellectual compliment. It's an act of attentive listening and sincere appreciation for her inner strength rather than flattery or an effort to appear intelligent. The world. Consider this scenario. During a discussion, she shares an unusual way of thinking. The master will take a moment to utter a line based on the I adore the way you follow the method. I adore how you're thinking connected, for instance. Those two items. You see the invisible, while most people think in patterns. Links, or you are aware that you possess a unique talent for simplifying difficult concepts. exact pictures, or the strongest form, as you just explained that circumstance. It alters how I see it myself. I'm grateful for that. At that real magic occurs at a time on an unseen psychological level. Initially, you immediately go from being simply another suitor to becoming someone who can see and hear me. Second, you take away her primary line of defense. All he wants is my body. Your interest in her brain causes the alarm to go mute. Thirdly, you elevate the interaction from simple flirtation to a dialogue between two people, setting a whole new tone. Two equally fascinating individuals. She is unconsciously pulled to you as a result of this disarming. A dot. Consequently, after inserting it, the first key is turned. Not only did you say anything kind to her, her security system has been compromised by you, demonstrating that you are a skilled appraiser and not a burglar who has come for the glitzy wrapper, but rather for the uncommon wealth concealed within. You now have her full attention, her confidence, and above all, her sincere interest. Her mental portal has opened, and she is now prepared to approach you and see what key you will use next. Section 2. The ego's key. If a woman's ego is the guard and her brains is the fortress's armored outer wall, at the entrance, once the first line of defense has been cleared, this guard will definitely put you to the test. It is his responsibility to weed away the weak, the undeserving, and people who are not here to conquer, but to worship. Men fail at this 9 times out of 10. Test as they behave as if they are supplicants. They keep complimenting her and thaw as they gaze at her. Eyes, put her on a pedestal, and concur with whatever she says. They believe they are purchasing her love, when, in truth, they are only validating their inferiority. Women are naturally not drawn to a person lower in status than herself. She doesn't require another admirer. She needs someone or an equal, just above the dot. The second key is there for this very reason. The secret to the ego. Light provocation is the art of it. Its purpose is to avoid offending, to degrade her, but to startle her, knock the crown from her head, and make her perceive you as another fan, but as a fascinating and independent person. A light, the term provocation blends a challenge and a compliment, friendliness and chilly, both a benefit and a drawback. Her ego is forced to awaken by a verbal prod. What does this look like in practice? Who is he to talk to me like that? When she talks about how many people like her, or how everything comes to her so readily, a novice will either get envious or begin to admire her. The master would say, however, with a little, "You must be accustomed to having all guys at your feet," he said with a smirk. "That must be awful." Dull. Can you see what's going on? The phrase, "all men at your feet," in its first section, is an affirmation of her great worth and a compliment. But the second portion, "it must be quite dull," is difficult and diminishes her world while emphasizing at the same time that your world, one in which you must accomplish goals, is far more fascinating. Dot, or as an additional illustration, she has a charming yet blatantly juvenile quality. You say with warm cynicism, "There's a bit of a spoiled lifestyle," rather than swooning over it. The child in you is both endearing and intolerable. Once more, the A plus and a minus, the same structure. You're not passing judgment, but you're also not. You are watching, evaluating, and expressing your opinion while adoring either way, from an equal position, which forces her to step outside of her comfort zone. She's accustomed to men who either naively like her or disparage her. Your role is novel and inexplicable to her, and anything that is inexplicable is fascinating. The primary key to this key is appropriate and appropriate delivery. It should be spoken without rage or a sour tone, and with a faint, nearly unnoticeable smile, intent to cause harm. Your tone should be, I enjoy your game, but I'm not playing it by your rules. This immediately changes the balance of power. Become a subject whose approval must now be gained rather than an item she assesses, according to her subconscious gets a signal. He's different from the rest. He sees through me, not attempting to get my approval. Perhaps I must win his approval. And at that point, the many people make the mistake of overdoing it and sliding when the second lock clicks open into blatant rudeness or moralizing. Keep in mind that your intention is not to offend, but to put oneself on her level, to captivate, not to degrade. It's a delicate balance that distinguishes a master from a brute. You don't shatter her ego. Instead, you gently nudge it to, and that little scrape makes her think of you far away. Remind her that it exists. More than the loveliest comments. Her focused attention is something you gain by turning this key, begins examining you in an effort to comprehend and identify you. Become an intriguing challenge and a conundrum for her, and while her conscious mind is occupied with this work and her subconscious is already moving closer to you, you have gotten past the gate, and the route farther within the stronghold is now accessible. Section 3. The Secret to the Imagination. You've shown her that you respect her as a person by opening her thoughts. After demonstrating your equality and opening her ego, you've now advanced to the third. The lock to her is the most delicate and enchanted of all. Imagination. All of your communication thus far has been at the level of your job. Now is to move it to the level of sensations from logic and social games. Her body needs to feel something that isn't happening yet, so you need to begin caressing her with linguistic kinesthetics. This key refers to the skill of employing words in your speech that causes her brain to experience bodily sensations. Our brain it is wired in a way that makes it difficult to tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a real one. She can practically taste the sourness of a cold lemon, but if you suggest a hot one, her neurological system recalls that feeling from the sand. The master uses this. How does it work? You don't mention the cognitive mechanism that starts the foreplay long before the first touch. Sex. You merely spin tales or descriptions without discussing attraction. You incorporate sensory aspects into your discussion, such as hot and cold words are those that convey touch, temperature, and texture. For instance, rather than just stating, I was at the beach once, you describe the event in a new way. I recall one instance when I was late in the evening, resting on the beach. The sun had already gone down, yet the sand, it was still warm, even hot, beneath my back, but the sea breeze was already cool, on the contrary, and I was getting goosebumps. Dot, dot, dot. What did you just do? You didn't say a single word after the contrast. Anything about her, but a wide variety of sensations simply passed through her brain. Goosebumps on her skin, the chill of the breeze, and the warmth of the sand. Her body has started to awaken. You have used her imagination to your advantage. You paint images in her head that she feels as well as sees. This is the most secure and simultaneously the most potent kind of seduction at this point. Dot. Or, for instance, when discussing coffee, a novice will remark, I enjoy when you hold a hot, heavy cup of coffee. A master will exclaim, I love that moment. You hold a ceramic mug in your hands. Inhale the heady scent. Take a first scalding sip, and this feeling rushes through your body. Once more, it's not words, but feelings. The weight of a hot mug, the scent, the searing flavor, a surge of, you are referring to coffee. But in reality, you are adjusting her body to a particular frequency to pick up on small physical cues. This key needs develop your ability to notice and describe the world through sensations rather than words. Lovely sunset, However, the sky appeared to be a fiery peach, and the music wasn't pleasant, yet a deep bass that makes your chest tremble. The more sensory moorings her body will be more ready for actual touch when you put it in her head. Her nerve system will already be warmed up when you touch her hand later, so it won't be a surprise. It will be the natural progression of what was already taking place in her imagination. Being overly forthright is the worst error here. You don't have to state that is impolite and will make her turn away. Imagine my hands touching your skin. It's your job to be an artist, not a butcher. You set the mood, create a background. You discuss various topics, such as food, travel, nature, and art. But this is the ultimate level of skill. You do it in the language of the body. Without even implying seduction, they are luring her in, and when her mind is fully within your power, the third lock opens by the time she has mentally experienced dozens of touches, without requiring any effort from you. Part 4. The Secret to Bound Dieso. Her imagination is stimulated, her ego is interested, and her mind is open. The circumstances are ideal for you to go from words to action. But it's that most guys make a rapid, awkward lunge at this exact moment, where they fail again. When they attempt to embrace or kiss her, she immediately raises a hand and a chilly don't. Why? Because they failed to notice the fourth most important key, which is the key to her personal boundaries. Dot. You must obtain her silent consent before invading her private space. Must normalize physical touch so that it seems secure and natural. The technique of non-sexual contact is crucial. It's a brief, self-assured, and socially three essential purposes of permissible touch are to normalize physical contact. It breaks down the invisible barrier and checks her response. What is a non-sexual touch between you? It's not an embrace or a caress. It's a practical, almost transient touch. As a quintessential illustration, you allowed her to a doorway first, then briefly rest your hand on her small of her back. Back. Your hand leads, not grabs. It is firm, but not forceful. You take it off. Your hand after the motion is over. You don't wait for a response, and you don't give her a curious look. Dot or another choice. You laugh at her throughout a discussion as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Joke and briefly touch her forearm, making sure to be brief and gentle. Light. It is used to strengthen an emotional bond rather than a sexual one. Tip. As an additional illustration, you remark, look, and turn her by the shoulder gently in the correct way. Or you wipe a dust particle that doesn't exist off her shoulder. Each of these acts has one commonality. They have a rational, non-sexual explanation. You're engaging in a typical social ritual with her by groping her. What? What's going through her mind right now? If she doesn't tense up, pull away. Her subconscious checks a box. He's not breaking my rules when he touches me. Significant bounds. I have faith in him. Each touch is a tiny test, a tiny calibration, in which a signal is sent and the reaction is monitored. If the response is optimistic, she stays at ease, perhaps even leaning in unconsciously. You are on the correct path. The obstacle has been overcome. Should she stiffen or retreat, moreover, even a small amount of such information is priceless. It's not a rejection, but a signal. Too soon. In this instance, a master doesn't provide an apology or turn it into a drama. He just takes his hand away and carries on the conversation as though nothing had happened. Occurred, attempting a second, even softer touch, and eventually he adjusts. He senses the line and slowly dissolves it. The secret to boundaries is a dance, where you take one step, observe her response, and then take another. Neurological system used to your energy and presence. You allow her to touch a portion of your common language, as, and when she ceases to notice these brief touches, when her body embraces them as a normal part of speech or a gaze, granted, it indicates that the fourth lock is unlocked. You have been given implicit consent to, you are now an insider, not a stranger, when you penetrate her intimate area. Additionally, this gives you a whole new set of options that you can utilize with the next most intense key. The fifth is the pivotal moment. Up until now, you've been functioning in accordance with social norms. You were an intriguing, self-assured, tactile, but yet secure man. It's time to reveal that beneath the facade of a gentleman and an academic, there is something more. She needs to follow her gut. The fifth trick is the art of contacting the non-obvious forbidden zones, which is what immediately divides the gourmet from the glutton, the master from the amateur. An amateur with acquired the ability to touch instantly reaches for the most visible areas. His attempts to wrap his arm around her shoulders, waist, and hips are he behaves like a hungry man and is predictable, displaying his genuine motives, jumping on food, but a master knows that real stimulation comes from suggestion, from intrigue, rather than directness. He is aware that although a woman's anatomy contains some areas that are not directly erogenous, touching them elicits a significantly greater strong bodily and mental reaction. The reason for this is that these zones are connected to subconscious cues, trust, and vulnerability. What are these zones? The first is the hairline at the nape of the neck, which is an extremely delicate and susceptible area. A quick, gentle touch to this zone, for instance. It allegedly landed on her hair when you helped her fix her collar or just brushed a leaf away. Gives her brain a strong signal of intimacy and trust. It's an almost intimate gesture, but her conscious mind doesn't have time to raise its defenses since it's so subtle. The second zone is the inner forearm from the wrist, where the body has already responded to the elbow. Because the skin there is fragile and delicate, in daily life, nobody ever touches it. When highlighting a point in a discourse, instead of caressing her shoulder, delicately slide your fingertips over the inside of her arm, and the result will be 10 times more powerful. This action is inadvertently interpreted as a deeper intrusion into her personal space as a token of appreciation. The third area, the hollow behind the knee, one of the most sensitive areas of the body, requires the greatest level of competence. Body. Intentionally touching it is ridiculous, but the master crafts a circumstance in which such a contact seems unintentional, like while you're sitting adjacent to one another, and as you move, your leg briefly touches hers. A moment at that location, or you drop something and, when you pick it up, when your hand unintentionally touches that spot, you may know by her response. Everything. Goosebumps, a shudder, a small gasp. All of these indicate that the body is completely awake and prepared for more. The touches are not the main focus of this key, themselves, but what you exhibit. You reveal that you are aware of her body's secrets, which she may not even be aware of. Know herself. You don't go the usual route. Instead, you investigate her as a knowledgeable griffer. This immediately makes you an expert, a connoisseur. She sees you as a man who comprehends ladies who are not on an instinctive level, but at the level of glossy publications, and that is highly aroused. She begins to consider, if he can sense me in this way right now, what comes next? Every one of my videos will have this degree of detail if this is the dot. By pressing the fifth key, you've lit the key to the subscription you've been searching for. Fuse. Your relationship has changed from being warm to becoming hot. You are no longer just a captivating speaker. Her physique is a source of yearning. Starts to respond by dilating her pupils, breathing, and possibly touching you more frequently. We'll go a bit further. She is prepared, and it is important to make sure she doesn't miss that the next stage is about to begin. Part 6. The Secret to a Louis. Every step that came before it was preparation, a lengthy and lovely foreplay. You've established intrigue, trust. You are now on the threshold, having woken her body and ignited her imagination. She is expressing her willingness to you through all of her nonverbal cues, and currently, 99% of the guys who have miraculously survived this far before making the most embarrassing error of them. They stare into her eyes and say the most passionate thing after asking for her consent. In that moment, with all the power you possess, is it possible for me to kiss you? Meticulously constructed crumbles. From a self-assured master, a specialist in the you become an insecure boy, female soul, and ask his mother for a sweet. Place all the blame for the situation on her. You make her choose between saying yes and feeling comfortable or saying no, and feeling uncomfortable is a waste of time. Because at this point, women are inherently averse to making decisions. They want to have them made for them and to submit to a power she believes in. The sixth key is the secret to her want to be guided. It's the art of giving a clear directive without being obscene. Observe her nonverbal cues, her prolonged stare into your eyes, followed by her lips. The you stop hinting as you get closer and feel a few small touches from her. Posing as the leader, you ask, pause, and give her a direct look. The eyes, and you say only two words in a low, quiet, assured voice, a phrase that conveys a factual message rather than a request, like, come here. It's not rudeness or a command to a soldier. Rather, it's the cool, total assurance from a man who is aware of both his and her desires. This sentence just contains an invitation. There is no hesitation or question. That is unavoidable since it perfectly fits with her own inner desire. You absolve her of any accountability by saying this. Didn't agree. She obeyed, allowing her good girl, her inner censor, to fall mute. Since the initiative wasn't hers, she could now do anything she wanted. You, as a capable leader, took care of everything. This is the point at which all of your efforts have come to fruition. Change from a game to the real world. It needs to be done well. It's simply only the words that count. But what follows? Once you've said, come, you don't wait here, you take the last step in her direction, sealing the distance, and without bother or hurry, you give her a firm but gentle kiss, that you have total authority over the scenario. You are the scene's director, not a performer waiting for a prompter's cue. This key is the most important yet, the one that is executed the quickest. It firmly establishes your dominant status in terms of psychological weight, but not dominant in the sense of repression, but in the sense of accountability and leadership. You are the one in charge, someone who is fearless. You are the one she can trust. And when a woman experiences this cone strength, her final barriers fall away. Analyzes, she feels, not thinks. Her secret desires are unlocked. Additionally, you are in front of the final and most crucial door. Part 7. The all six locks are open during the master key hour at the goal. She has faith in your intellect, is prepared to offer you her all because she respects your power, is awed by your touch, and is overcome by your confidence. Everything, and the real master acts exactly here, just a step away from victory. What makes him unique? He takes his time. He doesn't jump to the conclusion, is already available to him. So he chooses to utilize the seventh key, the master key, which opens more than simply her body. It opens her spirit. What does the key of selfless service mean? You give her your whole attention before pursuing your own pleasure. That the motivation behind this protracted expedition was not a self-serving desire to own her, but rather a desire to provide her with an experience that she might not have had previously. This is the last act that fundamentally alters the game's laws. You were the leader, the conqueror, and now, in reality, you are the giving king who presents gifts to his queen. Delay your own satisfaction. You employ the most effective weapon a man can have. You go to the origin of her enjoyment. You engage in oral sex not as a hasty prelude or as a duty, but as the focal point. You start investigating her corpse. You are not in a rush. You see her responses, hear her breathing, and sense even the smallest tremble. Right now, all you want is for her to reach her peak, forget, and lose control. There are a number of reasons why this key has such destructive power. The first is the complete annihilation of every woman's last dread. He's simply taking advantage of me. When a man is prepared to invest time and effort in her enjoyment, asking for nothing in return, it speaks louder than words and demonstrates his worth of his self-assurance and generosity. Only a man with a lot of self-assurance can afford to service temporarily. Secondly, it is the strongest psychological anchor. In this way, you become more than simply another lover, and the pleasure she gets from you will be specifically linked to you. The strongest emotional and physical connection is formed when you become the one to introduce her to new pleasures. Will desire to relive it repeatedly, but only with you. Third, it alters the balance of power at the most profound level. Giving up to her pleasure truly gives you complete power. Once you give her that peak and she loses control in your hands, she will be prepared for everything. Her appreciation, her respect, and her wish to reciprocate will have no boundaries. She will not simply offer it to you. Instead, she gives herself to you without any hesitation and wants to offer you even more pleasure in return. The last secret is to give initially so you can get 100-fold later. Her pleasure is a safe that unlocks with ease and is not a door that can be forced open. The last secret of giving. Once you realize this, you will no longer be a supplicant. You will turn into a giver, and the one who gives is always the one who gets. Worship and total submission in exchange. In summary, we have traversed the whole route, 7 keys, 7 phases from total apathy to extreme. Let's take another look at this map. You began with her thoughts, trust and desire demonstrating your regard for her as an individual. Then you stroked her ego, building yourself as an equal. You prepared her by using words to spark her imagination, body from a distance. You aroused her by gently stepping over her limits and making contact feel normal, instincts, demonstrating your expertise in her private areas. You took the initiative at the pivotal point, releasing her from accountability. In the conclusion, you provided her with enjoyment without requesting anything in return, and got everything in return. Dot. You see, there's no room for violence, obscene behavior, or manipulation in this system. It is an art form founded on talent, respect, and a thorough understanding of female psychology. The great Freud was correct when he claimed that our social lives are a facade that hides a sea of unconscious wants. But you need a well-built ship, not a rudimentary raft, to get to these treasures, and you have just gotten its plans. You know that each step is crucial, each detail matters. You've evolved from a supplicant wishing for luck to a master keyholder who uses an art dot rather than forced to open a lady. And now the primary query for you in order to gain knowledge from our community. I have shared my vision, but I am aware that experience is the finest teacher. Recall a time when you were 20 or 30. What is the most important piece of guidance regarding thee? If you could send a single message back in time to your younger self, what advice would you give him about women's psychology? Write that guidance in the comments. Let's establish not only remarks, but also an authentic compilation of wisdom from men